Welcome to the new podcast, In the Garden with Susan. I'm your host, Susan Ladner. I will aim to bring you top quality information on how to save open pollinated seeds, grow a garden, and preserve what you grow. Every Wednesday, I'll be sharing practical tips and techniques to help you on your journey to food security. Join me as I preserve the abundance of produce that my garden provides. Learn new ways of putting food away for the winter and some old ways that are from another century. You can find this podcast on Shopify and at my website. Come on, let's go wander down to the garden and awaken the dreams, history, and love that is held inside every seed. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of In the Garden with Susan. And we're going to be continuing on with the edible flowers. I know in the past week, to be totally honest, I have not used edible flowers for anything. I'm not sure why. It has just seemed so crazy and so busy, but it did rain quite a bit. And, so there was 3 days of, like, some days torrential downpours, and so I didn't even get into the garden in those days. But I'm actually kind of excited about today's episode because I'm shocked that some of these flowers are edible, and I'm looking forward to trying some of them. However, I don't have all the flowers in my garden. But we are going to start with rose petals. And I think we sort of like rose waters is quite common. And, we've had rose flavoring. But for the rose petals, they're edible. And they have been used in culinary traditions around the world for centuries. And it's essential when you're going to use them to make sure that the roses have not been treated with pesticides or other chemicals. And so organic or homegrown roses are your best options. And nutritionally, rose petals are rich in antioxidants, and they also contain vitamins A, C, and E, and these are beneficial for skin health and immune support. And this is interesting. The natural scent of roses can help alleviate stress and improve mood. And I do know that the rose fragrance is the highest vibration, like for scents, it's the highest vibration you can wear. And so it only makes sense that if you would be ingesting this fragrance and this these nutrients into your system, that it would, make you happy. And so for uses, you can put the fresh rose petals into salads, and this will add a splash of color and a subtle floral flavor. They can be used in desserts to decorate cakes, pastries, and other desserts. And they can also be candied for a sweet treat. And you can infuse rose petals in water to make rose water, or add them to teas and cocktails for a unique flavor. You can make jams and jellies, which is fragrant and delicious. And you can make rose syrup, which is used in a variety of drinks and desserts. And then there are herbal teas in which dried rose petals can be used to make a soothing tea. And I have some recipes here. I have a recipe for rose petal jam, for rose water, candied rose petals, rose petal salad, and rose petal syrup. And I'm going to put those recipes down in the show notes below. Although they're not really that intricate, like they don't really give the measurements. I'm kind of disappointed. So you could also Google these things and try and find a recipe that has the measurements instead of just kind of trying to figure it out and tossing things in the pot. And so some tips for using rose petals is to always wash them before using them in recipes. and to remove the white base of the petals as it can be bitter, and use fresh petals for the best flavor and fragrance. And so different varieties have distinct flavors, aromas, and intensities. And the damask roses have a flavor that is sweet and strong and is often described as a classic rose flavor. And this variety is commonly used in making rose water, rose oil, and in culinary dishes. And then there is the Gallica roses, and the flavor is deep and rich with a slightly spicy note. And these roses are often used in herbal remedies. And then there's the centifolia roses, and the flavor is sweet with hints of honey and spice. And this is a popular variety for making rose water and jams. And then there's the rugosa roses, which has a slightly tart and fruity flavor. And this is often used in teas and culinary applications for their unique flavor. And there are hybrid tea roses, and the flavor it varies widely depending on the specific hybrid. And some are more sweet and some are more spicy. And these are used as decorative and in salads and garnishes. And then we have the wild roses, and the flavor is mild and less intense compared to cultivated varieties. And these are often used in herbal teas and traditional medicines. And some different things that can affect the flavor are the growing conditions, such as the soil quality, the climate, and the watering practices. Also, the harvest time. So, the time of day when the petals are harvested can affect their flavor, with early morning being the best time to capture the most intense aromas and flavors. And also, the younger petals tend to be more tender and less bitter compared to older ones. And so, that for preserving it, of course, we can dry them, and you just spread them in a single layer on a clean, dry surface like a screen or paper towel, and place them in a well ventilated area away from direct sunlight and let them dry completely, which can take several days. And then you want to store them. You can also oven dry them at the lowest setting, and you just place them on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper and dry in the oven for 2 to 3 hours and check regularly. And you can also put them in the dehydrator on the lowest temperature, and that will take several hours. You can also freeze them, and you just want to wash and dry them, spread them on a baking sheet in a single layer, freeze them, and then you can transfer them to a freezer safe bag or a container. And you can also sugar them, which you lightly brush the petals with the beaten egg white, sprinkle with sugar, and let them dry on a wire rack for several hours or overnight. And when you store these in an airtight container, you want to make sure there's parchment paper between the layers. And then you can preserve them in sugar, and you layer fresh rose petals with granulated sugar in a jar and ensure that the petals are completely covered with sugar. Seal the jar and store in a cool, dark place, and the petals will slowly dry and infuse the sugar with their fragrance. You can also make rose petal vinegar and place the fresh petals in a clean jar. Cover with white wine vinegar or apple cider vinegar. Seal the jar and let it sit in a cool, dark place for 2 to 4 weeks. Strain and store the infused vinegar in a clean bottle. And you can also make rose petal syrup. And you just simmer the fresh petals in a mixture of water and sugar. Strain the mixture and bottle the syrup or can it, or you can also store it in the refrigerator. And so so that is roses. I really wish I had a big rose bush around here, um, because some of those recipes sound amazing. And then now we have cornflower. And cornflowers are also known as bachelor's buttons. And they are edible flowers and often used for their vibrant blue color and mildly sweet to spicy flavor. And they are a popular choice for culinary decoration and adding a touch of elegance to various dishes. And so these flowers are rich in antioxidants. They are traditionally used in herbal medicine to support digestive health, and they also contain compounds that may reduce inflammation. And so cornflowers are used in salads. The fresh petals can be sprinkled on salads for a pop of color and subtle flavor. They can be used to decorate cakes, cookies, and other baked goods. They are used as garnishes. The dried petals can be blended into herbal tea mixes for added color and flavor, and they can be infused into syrups to add to beverages. And so, to preserve cornflower petals, you can dry them, just like you dry other petals. You can also place them into the dehydrator on the lowest setting. You can freeze them by washing and drying them and spread them on a baking sheet in a single layer, and then transfer them to a freezer safe container or bag. And so some of the recipes, you can make a cornflower salad, and you just add the cornflower petals to mixed greens. You can also throw in some sliced almonds, some shredded cheese, and some vinaigrette. And then you can make a cornflower infused syrup, and you add the petals to sugar. And first you boil the water and sugar to make a syrup. Then you add the cornflower petals and simmer for 10 to 15 minutes. Strain and bottle the syrup and store it in the refrigerator. You can make a cornflower herbal tea, and you take dried cornflower petals, dried chamomile, dried mint, mix them all in equal parts, and steep a teaspoon of the mix in hot water for 5 to 7 minutes. Strain and enjoy. And so the differences, I wanted to know about the differences in flavor. And cornflower varieties mainly differ in color rather than flavor. While the most common color is blue, cornflowers can also be found in white, pink, and purple. And the flavor profile of cornflowers is generally consistent across different varieties, offering a mild sweetness with a slightly spicy undertone. And something to note is that the intensity of the flavor can vary slightly depending on the growing conditions and the specific cultivar. And so um to yeah, so that's basically it. I guess I usually go into how to preserve. Oh, I did. Sorry about that. I'm so focused on what I'm doing, I'm not thinking. So now this is something interesting. Chrysanthemums. And these are often referred to as mums, and they are edible flowers widely used in Asian cuisines, and they're particularly used in Chinese and Japanese cooking. However, not all chrysanthemums are suitable for consumption. So it's essential to make sure you are using an edible variety. And the nutrition of them, they're rich in antioxidants. They do have compounds that may reduce inflammation, and they are traditionally used to support digestive health as well as a natural remedy for various ailments. And you can use the fresh petals in salads for a slightly tangy flavor and vibrant color. Chrysanthemum tea is popular in Chinese medicine and is known for its cooling properties. And the petals can be used to flavor and garnish soups and stews. And young chrysanthemum greens and petals can be added to stir fries, and they are used in herbal remedies for some teas. And then to preserve them, you can do air drying, you can throw them in the dehydrator, you can freeze them. And so some of the recipes I found is the chrysanthemum salad, and you take your mixed greens, your fresh chrysanthemum petals, sliced cucumber, sesame seeds, and a vinaigrette, and you just toss it all up and drizzle on your vinegar and vinaigrette and serve. And then you can make chrysanthemum tea with the dried flowers, a chrysanthemum soup, and I will just put the recipe in the show notes below, and the chrysanthemum stir fry. And so some differences in flavor. The different varieties of chrysanthemums can have varying flavors, ranging from mildly sweet to slightly bittery and peppery. And the yellow chrysanthemums are they're the most commonly used for tea, and they have a mild, slightly sweet flavor. The white chrysanthemums are often used in soups and salads, and they offer a subtle flavor. And the garland chrysanthemum, also known as crown daisy, these have a slightly bitter, tangy taste and are popular in Asian cuisines. And of course, you only want to use fresh, pesticide-free petals, and for preparation, you want to remove the bitter base of the petals before using them in recipes, and keep the preserved petals in a cool, dark place to maintain their color and flavor. And so now the next one, this really shocked me because I love this flower and I've grown it before, and I think it ranks up there in one of my most favorite flowers ever because it's so different and beautiful, and it's the fuchsia. And fuchsia flowers are edible and can add a burst of color and a unique taste to various dishes. And both the flowers and the berries of the fuchsia plants are safe to eat. And the flavor is a mildly sweet with a slightly acidic tone. And so the fuchsia flowers can be used to add color and a mild flavor to salads. The flowers and berries can be used to decorate cakes, pastries, and other desserts. The fuchsia berries can be made into jams and jellies, and the flowers can be used to garnish dishes and cocktails. As well, the flowers can be added to teas or cocktails for a unique flavor. And to preserve the fuchsia flowers and berries, you can dry them. You can put them in the dehydrator. You can freeze the flowers and berries. And then for making the fuchsia jam, you collect ripe fuchsia berries. You wash them and remove the stems and cook the berries with sugar and a bit of lemon juice until the mixture thickens, and pour into sterilized jars and seal, or can, I'm sure. And so some recipes are the fuchsia salad. You can take your mixed greens and fresh fuchsia flowers, some sliced strawberries, and this recipe has goat cheese and a vinaigrette. And you toss that all together and drizzle with the vinaigrette and serve. There's the jam, which we already talked about. The fuchsia tea can be made with fresh or dried fuchsia flowers, and you can add honey if you like. And then you can also make a syrup that can be added to drinks. And different varieties of fuchsias have slightly different flavors, but most share a mild sweetness with a hint of tartness. And so the primary difference between varieties are more visual than flavor related. And some of the tips, again, um, make sure that when you're collecting these, you know where they've been grown, that there's been nothing sprayed on them, and you want to keep them in a cool, dark place to maintain their color and flavor after they have been harvested. So I wasn't too sure what fuchsia berries were. I mean, I know I've grown them, and I've tried to sort of, like I was thinking that's the seed pods or whatever. And so the fuchsia berries are the small edible fruits produced by the fuchsia plants. And they they're typically small, oval, or spherical, and they can range in color from dark purple to deep red or even black when fully ripe. And they have a mildly sweet flavor with a slightly tart undertone, and the taste is somewhat similar to a mix between a grape and a kiwi, and the berries are juicy with a soft texture. And so you can eat the fuchsia berries right off the plant. And of course, we've talked about all the different things you can do with them. And the fuchsia berries are a good source of vitamin C and A, as well as various antioxidants. And you want to pick the berries when they are fully ripe, which is indicated by their deep color and slightly soft texture. And the ripe berries are easily plucked from the plant. And so, yeah, very interesting about that. Things I did not know. And now we're going to talk about geraniums. And I got really excited about this because the other day I went into town and I was heading into Canadian Tire, and there was 90% off their plants. And so I bought a bunch of plants, and I got a bunch of geraniums because they were 25 cents. And so when I found out that geraniums are edible, I was like, oh my goodness. But I'm not sure. I don't think the ones I have are edible. So we're going to sort of talk about them right now. And but it's really the edibility of geraniums are particularly the varieties known as scented geraniums. And they have been used in culinary applications for centuries. And the ones that are most edible are the scented varieties like the rose, lemon, and mint geraniums. And they're rich in vitamins A and C. And the scented geraniums are also used in aromatherapy for their calming and uplifting properties. And so you can put fresh geranium petals into your salads for a splash of color and a unique flavor. The petals can be used to decorate cakes, pastries, and other desserts. You can infuse geranium leaves in jellies and syrups for a fragrant twist. And you can also make tea from fresh or dried geranium leaves and petals. And then you can add petals or leaves to infuse water, lemonade, or also some beverages. And to preserve them, of course, you can dry them. Gently wash the petals and leaves and pat them dry. Spread the petals and leaves in a single layer on a clean, dry surface like a screen or paper towel. Placed in a well-ventilated area away from direct sunlight, and you let them dry, which can take several days. You can also put these in the dehydrator. You can also freeze them. And so I wanted to know some recipes to make with the geraniums. And you can make a geranium infused sugar, and you take fresh geranium leaves and granulated sugar, and you layer the leaves with the granulated sugar in a jar, seal the jar, store in a cool, dark place for a few weeks, and then use the infused sugar in baking or to sweeten tea. You can make a geranium jelly, and this is just like, I'm a huge canner. I love canning. I love making different sort of recipes. I mean, I know I've done some canning and I actually have never even tried it. I think like I've made some crazy stuff and I have it sitting there. And one day one day I'm going to try it. Some of these maybe savory things made with fruit, or like putting herbs instead the fruit. But this one's out there for me, and it's so out there. I almost really want to go and get some scented geraniums. Like, I want to go into town and buy some of these flowers, if they're any still in any of the shops, any of the flower stores or the garden centers. But geranium jelly, and you take fresh geranium leaves, and you use water, sugar, pectin, and lemon juice. And so this thing's got to be loaded with sugar if you're putting pectin in there. I mean, yeah, you can always use the pomonas, right? But that stuff's getting up to $12 a box now. So, but anyway, so you boil the water and add fresh geranium leaves to infuse. Strain the liquid, return to the pot, and then you add your sugar, pectin, and lemon juice. You bring to a boil. You pour into sterilized jars and seal. And so I don't have a full-on recipe for that, but if anyone's interested in that geranium jelly, I'm sure some Google searches you can find some information on it. And then there's geranium tea. You can use fresh or dried geranium leaves, hot water, and honey, and geranium lemonade. And you use the fresh geranium leaves, lemons, water, and sugar. You boil the water and sugar to make a syrup, add fresh geranium leaves, let it sit to infuse, and then you mix the syrup with freshly squeezed lemon juice and water, and you serve over ice. And so I don't know how we got so far away from none of those recipes really even used the petals. But so I wanted to know about the difference in the flavors. And the different varieties of scented geraniums have distinct flavors that often are reflected in their names. And so rose geranium has a sweet floral flavor reminiscent of roses. The lemon geranium has a citrusy flavor similar to lemons. Mint geranium is refreshingly minty in its flavor. And there's the nutmeg geranium. I've never even heard about that. And that has a warm, spicy flavor. And the apple geranium has a fruity, apple-like flavor. Like, I've never even heard of these ones, Like, yes, rose geranium, and yes, the lemon, but who knew? And so that's the geraniums. It really gets me motivated to go to the garden shops and try and find some of these guys. And now we have mallow flowers. And I'm quite excited about these. My marshmallows have just started flowering. And I also just planted some Zabrina mallows. I hope that they germinate and they pop up. But mallow flowers, they're edible, and they have been used in culinary traditions for centuries. And they are known for their mild flavor, and they can add an interesting element to various dishes. And so the flowers are rich in vitamins A and C, calcium, magnesium, and potassium, and they're used to that they can soothe the digestive tract, and they are traditionally used to treat ailments like sore throats and coughs. And so fresh mallow flowers and leaves can add color and a mild flavor to salads. And the mallow, I guess it would be the leaves, but they can be used to thicken soups and stews. And dried mallow flowers and leaves can be used to make soothing herbal teas. The flowers can be used to garnish dishes and desserts, and mallow leaves can be cooked and used as a pot herb similar to spinach. And that's interesting. I did not know that. And so, for preserving the mallow flowers, you can dry them, you can put them in the dehydrator, and you can also freeze them. And some of the recipes I found is a mallow salad, and mallow will make you mallow. You take mixed greens and fresh mallow flowers, sliced cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, and a vinaigrette. Toss them all together, put your vinaigrette on there, and you can serve it. And then there is a mallow soup, and you take the mallow leaves and some broth, garlic, onions, salt, and pepper, and you saute the garlic and onions until translucent. Add chopped mallow leaves and cook for a few minutes. Add the broth and bring to a boil. Simmer for 20 to 30 minutes, and you can season and then serve hot. And then there is the mallow tea. You can use fresh or dried mallow flowers and leaves, hot water and honey. And then there is the mallow smoothie. And you take fresh mallow leaves, banana, spinach, almond milk, and honey, blend them all up, and serve chilled. And so different species of mallow generally have similar mild flavors. However, there are slight variations in the flavor and texture based on growing conditions. And so, yeah, that's about it. I'm hoping that everybody found that interesting. I'm trying to find my way back into the recording device. And so I guess I will talk to you next week. And I feel like going to the garden center right now and finding some of these geraniums. I hope that everyone learned something today and maybe is motivated to try some of these flowers in their cooking. And we still have so many flowers to talk about. I get a little bit excited every week because I just want to fit so much in. And then I remember that there is the time constraint, and I just don't want to keep talking and talking. But I also are seeing some flowers in there that maybe we can start to be using. So I'm trying to get the flowers in that can be growing in the garden. So if anybody does have them, maybe they can start to use them in some of their dishes or some of their beverages. And so I hope everyone has a wonderful week. We're starting to get the heat here. The garden is starting to grow, and so are the weeds. And I actually do have to get out to the garden now and to start getting a handle on some of these weeds because it is getting a little bit out of control in some areas. And so I will talk to you next week, and I will see you in the garden. Thank you for joining me for this episode of In the Garden with Susan. I hope you're enjoying the Flower Power series. And as we look at all the different edible flowers, you can find this podcast and others at Spotify, Podchaser, Radio Public. It's on my Rumble channel. It's on my YouTube channel. And you can always find it at my website at www.gardenfairybotanicals.ca. I look forward to chatting with you next week when we will continue on our journey through the edible flowers.